What's up guys, Michael here from Southern Indiana Sawmill. I wanted to talk about the one thing that is going to cause you the most problems in your woodworking life. Let's get started. If there's one video that you could watch that would probably change your entire life as a woodworker, it might actually be this video, because I'm addressing the one topic that is going to be the number one source of argument that you're ever going to have. It's going to be the number one problem that you're going to be continually encountering throughout your entire life. What is that one thing? Well, let me tell you. It's method! Oh no! I hate method. It's the worst thing ever. I love method. It makes my life so easy. When you think of method, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, it's probably a technique or a way of doing something that you have developed over time that works for you. It's a given process of which you acquire success. It's a system that you built that allows you time and time again to have success in your work. It's a proven way of getting stuff done the correct way, as efficiently as possible, with the proper use of the tools and materials that you have available. This is exactly why this is going to be the number one argument that you're going to have the rest of your life. If you ever work with anybody else in your life and you're not just hanging out in your shop by yourself, you're going to always come across different ways of doing things, and that is why this is going to be the most important thing that you do in your entire life. Now, just a disclaimer, this video is not a teaching manual to show you different methods of actually doing things. This is just kind of a rant on the actual topic of method. You know, speaking of method, I don't think that all professional woodworkers look like maybe you think they do. There's a weird reputation out there nowadays that if you don't have a beard and suspenders and black rimmed glasses and some sort of a faux hawk haircut, that you may not be a professional woodworker. Well, in fact, most of the professional woodworkers I've known are t-shirt wearing, jeans, shorts wearing, sweat your butt off in a hot shop all day kind of guys. And the appearances and the looks of what you think that a professional woodworker should look like is maybe a method problem as well. I can't tell you how many guys I've seen, and I don't mean this to be too stereotypical or hateful in any sense of the regard, because everyone should try to achieve perfection in what they're doing with their woodworking skill. But boy, it's not about image. It's not about what you look like. It doesn't matter if you're tall, thin, short, fat, mustache, beard, clean shaven, whatever. And I've been a little bit of all of those through my adolescent to adult stages. But professionalism is by accepting the proper methods and finding the best techniques of doing things and doing them on such a skill level that is above and beyond what your average person can do. That's what professionalism really is, and that is all about adapting proper methods. So let's talk about that for a minute. So for example, I'll show you one thing. S4S. Well, what is S4S? It's the ability to take something rough like this that came off of my sawmill and turn it into something smooth like this that is suitable for woodworking projects. So how would you take this board right here and convert it into a board like this? You know, there's many different ways of doing that, and that's really going to totally depend on the kind of tools that you have available to help you. So if you're like super old school, you refuse to plug into power and get any actual like power tools in your shop, and you pretty much use hand saws, hand planes, and things like that, to S4S a board you're going to need bare minimum. You're going to need some type of a saw to cut the wood with to get a straight edge. You're going to need some type of a scrub plane. You're going to need some type of a finishing plane. You'll probably need a joiner plane. And so it will take several tools for you to be able to get from start to finish, and also it's going to take you an incredibly long time. Well, if you have a shop where you do plug into power and you're able to afford some decent tools, you can S4S a board very quickly with simply a joiner and a table saw and a planer. But then there's other methods of doing that. You know, if you bring shapers into the equation, if you bring wide belt sanders or drum sanders into the equation, it changes the way that you can S4S a board again. And then you have to determine, is the S4S that I'm doing, is that now for, is that final dimensioning, or is this going to be like a glue up and then we're going to have to dimension it again after that? And so the possibilities can be endless, even with something as simply as S4S'ing a board. So you can see how this can work its way down into several other categories of woodworking as well. For example, finishing is a whole nother topic of woodworking that woodworkers often don't address. You know, most woodworkers are not finishers, but finishing is a whole nother profession all on its own that has its own methods and its own way of going about things to produce the best results. And that can be a minefield. That can be a Pandora's box that you can open just in the finishing world of how to accomplish things and get things done. Consider areas like trim work. There's so many different ways that you can cut different angled miters and things, and the best way to achieve that, to get that perfect fit into a corner. Consider areas like cabinet making and all the other disciplines. There's so many ways that you can do things. So one of the biggies is actually how to get the most use out of the wood that you have, and in other words, minimizing the waste that you have. If you have, for example, an 8-inch wide board, but your project only requires 2 3-inch pieces, well, you're left with this extra 3/4 piece in the middle. Is that total scrap, or do you have another purpose for that? If the board is so long, it has certain defects, is there best ways of cutting around that and making that work? Some people might care and some people may not, and that's the method by which you go about reducing and minimizing your waste. So that's another topic of discussion. Method covers every possible facet of your life, whether you realize this or not. It's not just woodworking. It has to do with how you first learned to tie your shoes, how much milk you might put in a cereal bowl. Have you ever tried making a pizza? What's the difference between a really good one that's really enjoyable to eat and one that tastes really awful? Well, it's because of the different methods of which people have went about procuring a way to have the best result for what they're trying to do. Obviously a pizza that has a very difficult to chew crust and the cheese is all maybe runny, or maybe it's overcooked and the sauce is awful. But then you have another pizza that is just so awesome and you understand. Then you realize that all of these other elements that have had to go in to make this masterpiece of deliciousness was possible because someone put so much care into what they were doing from beginning to end. So whatever craft you do, but especially since I focus on the woodworking end of things, in woodworking you have to be able to follow your process and your method with confidence from beginning to end. Now I want to talk about some other things when it comes to the method of the madness of which we go about, and some of the more uncommon things that you won't often think about. So think about this. If you've been into any sort of a woodworking or a hobby, you've probably been to a woodworking store at some point in your life. Whether it's the big names like Rockler or Woodcraft, or you've been to some of your smaller shops in your local area that have smaller names, are not as well known, they're not big online retailers. But regardless, you go into one of these woodworking stores, right? And typically there's some retired age person there, which I think is a fair stereotype for most of the woodworking shops I've been in. And you got this old timer in there. Maybe he got this job because he just wanted something to do in retirement. He's maybe not a professional woodworker, or perhaps he was a professional woodworker and he sort of had his time and his fill of being in the hot, sweaty shops day after day. In his older age, he wants to dedicate some time to helping some of us younger youths learn how to do things better. Well, here's the thing. When you walk into one of these stores, or you walk into a woodworking shop, if you're a youngster and you're going into a woodworking shop for your first time, and you see that 50 or 60-year-old man there, and he's had a certain way that he's done something for years and years and years, and now he's trying to explain that to you, and then you just write it off because you think, well, that's dumb. I saw some guy on YouTube say that he could do it this way, and your way is stupid, and that sort of a thing.
Stupid old fart. He thinks he just knows it all.
That disrespectful young squid. I can't stand him coming in my woodworking shop acting like he knows it all.
Well, take this into account. Method and the way people do things, especially in the woodworking field, it's not just a way of doing something to get something done, it's actually a way of life. It's a lifestyle, so it actually makes it a truth principle by which someone is living their lives. Now you might say, how can you possibly say that about S4S'ing a board or something like that? Well, it's because of the mentality and the process by which it's done, and the fact that a person believes truthfully with their whole heart that if they follow such and such a process, that is going to give the best result. And so there's dignity and there's truthfulness in the craft, in woodworking. And especially if you do it as a profession, like anyone who is working in a shop, you take very seriously the ways in which you go about doing things. Now, I can't even begin to tell you about some of the arguments that I've had going into shops with different people, and that particular shop had their own way of doing something, and so you learn to do it their way, and then you go into another shop, and in this shop, they have their own particular way of how they do something. Well, they can cause major blowouts and major arguments, not necessarily because you're trying to be arrogant or that you're trying to say, oh, my way is so much better or something like that, But really what's happening is that you're going in and you're questioning a truth element of that shop. They believe this is the best way of doing it, and so you can actually be offending their sensibility and what they believed is their acquired wisdom over time, because they think, well, my way is the best way, and so if you are saying that there's a different way that's better than ours, they might just write it off and say, well, this person is a troublemaker. They don't want to do it our way, and you'll just have strife the entire time you work there because you're unwilling to adapt to their way. That brings me to another point. All methods have advantages and disadvantages. So consider the success of some of the woodworking stores that you go to. You know, there are certain stores, big box stores, big online retailers, that have made a lot of money just selling like little jigs and fixtures and things that will help people do things a certain way. Whether it's, you know, a little 45 angle that will help you line up a blade, or it's a little tool that helps you grind the edge on your hand planes. Or perhaps it's a jig that helps you drill holes all perfectly and spaced apart, you know. There's so many different things like that. Now you could make those sorts of jigs yourself, given that you had enough time. But when you buy such a thing and then you start using it repeatedly and it becomes your go-to thing, you've actually accepted the truth that their method and their way is the best way of going about that project. Eventually that becomes a part of your lifestyle. It becomes a part of your go-to tool. I just got to say, some of those things are really, really good because it becomes a very helpful aid in helping us become better woodworkers over time and cutting down our time. We only live life once, so our time is valuable. If there is a jig or an apparatus or something that helps us do our job better, hey, why not? So here's the final thought, and I've had to write this down on paper so that I'll remember what I'm saying. Whatever you do, take to the task with an expectation of joy and seriousness. It is fun and enjoyable to find a better way of doing something, but understand that you are accepting a new truth, which will have serious implications for your future as a woodworker. So creating new habits is easy, and it's fun, and it's enjoyable. When you find a newer and a better way of doing something, it can be so much fun to realize, oh, I've been struggling so long with this particular method that I've been doing something. I just found a better way, and oh, it's so relieving because now I don't have to spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to do this. I found a better way. Finding better ways is fun and enjoyable, but breaking old bad habits, that can be very, very difficult. And so make sure that the methods that you are getting are really the best methods. Find the best teachers to do that. And you will know. You know, you'll say, how can I possibly know what the best way is? Believe me, you'll know. It's self-explanatory most of the time when you get into this stuff, because woodworking, after all, is not rocket science, but it is close. All right, folks, I hope you have enjoyed this video. It's sort of just a rant on method, like I said before, and I know that there's a lot that I am missing out, and there's a lot more that I could have said. But since I want to respect your time and not wander on for half an hour on my points of view, I'd like to hear more about what you think about it. So leave your positively reinforced comments in the comment section below. And I do read them as the videos are fresh. You know, after a few months, I don't tend to read the comments anymore. But leave your positive comments below. Maybe there's some good advice that you have that you'd like to share with people. And we can all read that together and enjoy that as a woodworking community. Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoy the content that I am putting out here, please go ahead and subscribe. It helps me bunches to know that there's people that have a willingness to see the new content that I put out. Keep in mind now, I am a professional woodworker myself, and so I actually do this for a living to support myself, meaning that I don't have the time to put out videos every single day, and sometimes there's actually quite long stretches between the videos. I'm trying to do better at that. Just bear with me, and if there's something that you would actually like me to talk about, or you would like to hear my opinion on, please put that in the comment section below or message me through YouTube, and I'd be glad to make a video addressing those topics of concern for you. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.